The April 2021 meeting of the City of Scranton Zoning Hearing Board will now come to order. Will the secretary please take roll?
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Marks?
Here.
Mr. Morris?
Here.
Ms. Newcomb? Excused. And Mr. Gattens?
Here. Thank you. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under
under
God.
God, indivisible,
Indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. It's a little odd this way, but in accordance with the Pennsylvania State Sunshine Law, this board shall render its decision on each case either at the end of each hearing or within 45 days of the hearing. If you are to give testimony in the case, please come to the podium, raise your right hand, and wait to be sworn in. After being sworn in, state your name and address and proceed with your testimony. Also, anyone giving testimony who does not become a party to the case may obtain a written decision from the zoning office. I also have two announcements of law. If you are granted a variance or a special exception, you must wait 30 days from the date of our decision to obtain the necessary permits to start work. However, you may obtain permits sooner by signing a waiver that any work done during that 30-day period is at your own risk. A favorable decision by this board shall expire in 12 months from the date of said authorization in accordance with section 111I of the zoning ordinance. If you fail to obtain the necessary permits or do not comply with any or all conditions of said authorization, you must seek an extension. Does the board have any remarks? Mr. King, can you verify the postings, please?
Yes, sir. I posted all the properties.
Very good. Thank you. Call the first one.
Before we start, I just want to introduce Annie Buckowitz, who's a new planner in our office. She's on the screen there tonight.
Hello.
How you doing? Welcome.
Thank you.
Our first case is Joyce Outdoor Advertising, appealing denial of a permit by myself, and in the alternative, seeking a variance for an off-premise sign at 106 Penn Avenue, Scranton.
I think before we go into that, we should announce that the LBM Scranton is not being held tonight,
Yes,
in case anybody's on for that.
for that. And also there were a number of the Verizon small cell sites that were also advertised that were withdrawn.
Thank you.
You caught me off guard, Don. I thought I was second.
Well,
Yeah, you're always number one, Jamie.
Thank you. Jamie Hailstone on behalf of Joyce Outdoor, and I assume I've got my client, Kevin Joyce. Kevin, you there?
I am. Can you hear
Okay,
me
good. Now I can see you. I couldn't see you.
Okay.
Mr. Harrelson, I'm going to stop you there. Let's swear him in right now, then we'll get that
Yes,
passed.
thank you.
Okay. Mr. Joyce? I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you please state your name and address?
Kevin Joyce, address 317 Poplar Street, Scranton, 18509.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go ahead, gentlemen.
Thank you. Just preliminarily, we've asked for a couple of things in the alternative here because we're sort of in an area which I don't think there's a lot of information to go on. This is an existing sign. I know the notice that we're looking to construct. It's been constructed. It's about 3 years old. It was permitted. Everything it has filed all the issues. Thank you, Don. There you go. As you can see, it's up here in the corner. Down Penn Avenue. The address though is the address is Penn. 106 Penn Avenue. It's the parking garage. It was originally a on-premise sign basically for items that were sold at the movie theater. As you can imagine, the movie theater didn't do too well with COVID. It became a real issue for my client, and he is seeking to now be able to advertise off premise advertisements on this same billboard. Wouldn't change the size, wouldn't change anything. The only thing that would change in this particular case is the content of the sign. And that's really what we're here about tonight. The regulations for signs are pretty clear in the current zoning ordinance, and just want to go through the pertinent issues here about why this sign should be allowed to be an off-premise sign as opposed to only on-premise, which right now is only in that the only viable business in this building is a garage. So there's not a lot you can do with the sign at the current occupant of the building. Hopefully the movie theater reopened, but we don't know that. And through no fault of Mr. Joyce, it closed. More the fault of COVID-19 than anything else. The purpose of the sign ordinance, according to the zoning ordinance, is to ensure that the physical environment is maintained and it's attractive and desirable. Well, I can tell you, if you remember that block before, the side of the building wasn't painted. There was nothing on the side of that garage. I would also point out that the development in this particular area has not been stopped because of the sign that Mr. Joyce has on the side of the building. The example is Sampter's building, which is right across the street. There are 24 apartments there. They're all rented. The fact of the sign did not change the dynamic of the neighborhood to such that it stopped development on that block. I would say it probably even encouraged it. The county building next door is also a building that hasn't been affected, hasn't caused any trouble because of Mr. Joyce's sign on this particular block. It also is meant to prevent visual pollution in the city, protect property values and commercial value of properties. Again, Sampter's was built after this sign was put up. The sign's almost 3 years old at this point. Nothing has caused any trouble on that block. We haven't been approached by anyone to complain about the sign, and the only comments are that they like the sign. This to prevent glare. Now, these are the issues that I don't think we have to get into because it's already permitted, which means that as far as lighting, it's okay with the city. As far as the size, as far as setbacks, as far as everything else, the sign itself in the parameters is fine. We have a permit for an on-premise, so that's all clear, and Don has already carefully vetted it and made sure that everything was okay. Also, part of the sign regulation is to avoid creation of additional visual distractions for motorists. Well, obviously, in 3 years, nothing's happened. There's been no increase in accidents at the intersection or on that block. And again, the lighting, nothing is causing any problems on this. So as to any concerns about the sign and the specific concerns that the city has based on their ordinance, the sign is okay. Further, the city ordinance then goes on to talk about the overall community beautification, protection of property values, promotion of traffic safety. These are all things that obviously it's been there for 3 years. There's been no trouble. There's been continued development in this area of the city. So I can't see any reason why there would be a problem with changing. Then we get into the issue of if you have to read the sign in order to decide whether or not it's legal, you're getting into the issue of whether it's content-based regulation. And that's the case here, because if whatever is up there, the city would have to go and look at it and determine whether or not, well, this isn't something that's being sold, or this isn't somehow connected with the occupant of the building. And I think that's where we get into the issue that, you know, the city's already been through very recently with where the ACLU forced the city to basically change its zoning ordinance because it was based on an issue of content as opposed to where it was, how it affected other businesses and things. So, you know, we are looking at something relatively similar to that issue that's already been addressed by the city through an ordinance to change a piece of the city's zoning ordinance. I'd also add that the prohibited signs, that with the piece that was changed under threat of the lawsuit, there's nothing in there that this sign violates. It's not flashing. It doesn't do anything that's prohibited under those regulations. Now that gets us to what kind of regulatory scheme can the city have as off-premise as opposed to on-premise signs. You have to look at this under what the courts refer to as intermediate scrutiny. It's a step down from strict scrutiny as to political signs and things because it is commercial, but intermediate scrutiny is still pretty serious, especially when we're talking about a sign that's already been there, already vetted, and clearly isn't violating any of the other rules. What's the specific government interest that is promoted by not allowing my client to advertise anything that he wants to, within reason, within the guidelines, as I've stated? There is none. And I went through the list of very good government interest in trying to keep visual pollution down, worried, and of course, one of the more important ones is worrying about the flow of traffic, pedestrians being able to, and safety concerns. There are no safety concerns here. So, I think we're getting into an issue where the city can't articulate clearly a government interest that is above my client's First Amendment interest to be able to advertise what he wants to be able to advertise at this particular spot. So that's why, when I made the application, I don't think we can talk about variance, we can talk about hardship, we can talk about the fact that he's invested an awful lot in this, painted the whole side of the building. He can talk about how much has gone into it, what the rent is and all that. And again, through no fault of his own, the movie theater closed down because of COVID. And that's the only reason. But it's clear that everything else is within the parameters. I think Joe O'Brien, the city solicitor, pointed out Reed versus Gilbert, which is a United States Supreme Court case, which recently put the focus on this issue of content neutral legislation. If you have to read it to determine whether or not it violates the code, it probably your ordinance probably violates the First Amendment. There's another case, a recent case with the Pennsylvania, the Third Circuit, Adams Outdoor versus PennDOT, where they didn't go so far as to say that there is no distinction between on and off, but we're very careful to point out that the government has to have some specific government interest that they articulate, and it's narrowly tailored to allow them to enforce this. Here, you've got a sign, it's already there. In this particular case, I don't think any of the reasons that you would keep this sign down or have this sign taken down wouldn't be a violation of the First Amendment of Joyce Outdoor to be able to use this sign. At this point, I'd like Kevin to talk for a moment or two about placing the sign, the original application, so you can get an idea of the history of the sign. And then we can talk about a little bit more about this issue, which That's why I'm looking for an interpretation. That's why I'm looking for an appeal of the dismissal. And I think Don, looking at the four corners of the ordinance, he had to do what he had to do. But I think this board can now say, well, as far as we're concerned, this in this particular case, we're not talking about expanding this outside of this particular case. There is no government interest, specific government interest in this particular case that would allow you to tell my client he can't use this for off-premises.
Attorney Harrelson, before going into testimony from Mr. Joyce, I just for clarification, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
And Dan and Don, jump in. We're only talking about the sign. We're not talking about the advertising on it. I don't see the proximity of tying this into Cedar Avenue. Cedar Avenue wasn't a question on the sign itself. It was a language on the sign.
Right.
That's why that case.
I was going to say that, Bob.
Yeah, there's no tie-in here. These two cases.
The Cedar Avenue one was a permitted sign. It was an on-site premises sign, so it was permitted. It was strictly the words that were being used on a permitted sign.
And what I would say,
this is different than that. This is now you're trying to expand off-premise signs to be the same as on-premise signs, basically. That's basically what you're telling us.
I don't think this board would have a question on Mr. Joyce's integrity of what he's going to put on that sign. We're here for the sign itself.
correct. But
Okay.
but again, what I'm talking about is specifically that issue of what is on the sign. And if you have to read, even if it's commercial, if you have to read what's on the sign to make a determination of whether or not it's in violation of the ordinance, you're getting into an ordinance that isn't content neutral, and you're getting into an infringement of First Amendment rights.
Okay.
But you have to read every
That's
sign
my
to see if it's
question.
on premises or off premises.
Right.
Pardon me, Dan? I missed you.
You have to read every sign to see whether it's on premises or off premises.
Yes, I agree with you.
So you're saying they're all one and the same.
Concerned about in this particular case, what is the specific government interest to keep my client from having a sign? There are other signs in town on parking garages that were granted. And you know, I think it's a matter of equity, but also it's a question of what's the government interest in not allowing the off-premise sign in this particular case. And I went through the list of what the city is trying to do, and I agree with much of it. But this particular case, it's not an intersection that there's been any increase. We've got the sign there. It's almost 3 years old. So we have a history here where we do have, I think, a right to expand it past that.
Well, that sign was granted when it was an on-premise sign. I mean, that's why it went through.
Right.
To say that at that time, if Mr. Joyce appeared and looked for an off-premise sign, Chancellor would have been shot down according to the ordinance. I mean, there have been questions over the past regarding that sign because the movie theater closed. It was still there, but it still had the advertisement that pertained to the movie theater when it was open. So I think at that time there are a lot of questions answered. But now we're looking at a whole different scheme here. I feel we're looking at putting an off-premise sign in the downtown area where up until this point, they have not been allowed. The only other billboard that I know that's downtown is on Mulberry Street in front of the apartments over there. I don't think there's anyone else in that corridor downtown, if I'm correct. And Don, you might be able to answer that correctly. I thought this ordinance was put in basically to protect the downtown area from billboards.
I believe that's true. And I do believe the city has a right to distinguish between off-premise and on-premise signs. But I can't disagree that this sign is there and that it's not causing an issue. I personally wouldn't be opposed to the issuance of a variance for this particular sign. But I would be opposed to an interpretation where this board finds that the conversion of a sign, on-premise sign to an off-premise sign is allowed, because to take that to maybe an absurd ending, then if you look up and down the street, almost every building has a sign on it that identifies their business. But if they could get more money having Miller Lite advertised, we could have every building in the downtown with an off-premise sign on it. And I don't think that's what we want. And like I said, I believe we do have the right to regulate between on-premise and off-premise signs, but this particular sign is there and I don't have an issue with it.
But are we going to open the door for all of a sudden off-premise or on-premise signs becoming, and similar to what you're saying, but let's go to the side of a building, say the Scranton
Well,
Times building, just
I
for
mean,
example.
that's why I think I'm not opposed to a variance, because that only deals with this one particular sign.
But are we going to be questioned on the number of variances? If we,
Well,
okay, this variance, are we going to
there
open the
may
door?
be, but I mean, every case has to be treated individually.
Right.
And I mean, and I think this is kind of a one-time only circumstance where it was an on-premise sign for a business that went out of business because of the pandemic. So
And just to take it to the ridiculous, if Boscov's were to go out of business and instead of the Boscov sign, you put up ski at Elk Mountain.
Yeah.
I mean, that just doesn't jive with what the ordinance is trying to do. I mean, the ordinance says to avoid off-premise signs that would have an unfair advantage over an on-premise sign in the competition for attention. I mean, that's part of what the reasoning for where on-premise signs are held and where off-premise signs are.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Joyce.
But I do agree with Mr. King. I think we do need a variance here if we're going to grant it.
Yeah.
Kevin,
Go ahead, Mr. Helson. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
that's fine. Kevin, if you could tell the board, give us the history of the sign,
Sure.
when you first applied and an idea of how much money you've invested.
Yeah, sure. So about 4 years ago, so I'm a small business, meaning me. So you're looking at the whole company. So my biggest advertiser at the time was Banco Beverage. And at the time they were down on South Washington Avenue in Scranton. And they came to me and they were aware of all of the things going on in the downtown, the apartments, the new businesses and everything else. And they wanted to more or less plant a flag in the downtown because they saw an influx of new residents, young people, people going out, a nightlife. They saw this emergence and they said, how can we get somewhere downtown to plant our flag? And the example they used was a sign that's been Coors Light for almost my lifetime on the Nativity Social Club. And they said, we love that idea because that sign is like a landmark. How can we do something? And we went through a whole list of places and things. And I said, but you can't do it unless it's on premise. So that led to the idea of, okay, well, we have bars and restaurants and how do we do that? And so we took that and I set up an appointment with, at the time it was Pat Hinton and Jack Sweeney. And first I met with Mr. Sweeney. He took the idea. He went to Mr. Hinton. He called me in. The three of us met on 2 or 3 occasions to discuss it and look at it. And they realized, well, yeah, you could put this up by right. And we went through, I mean, countless appointments, or I should say maps, pictures, images. They said, just make sure it fits the code in terms of setback, size, area, lighting. Obviously, we had an electrical permit. We did everything we could. We power washed the side of the building. We painted it. We illuminated it. So we put a lot of work into it. It wasn't a fly-by-night operation. We pulled all the permits. We sat on the permits for quite some time, just to make sure there was a comfort level with Mr. Hinton and Mr. Sweeney, and I'm not sure who else was in the department at that time. And then we built the sign. And then since the pandemic hit, that advertiser has drawn back severely, but as well as that is our whole reason for existence temporarily shut down, obviously. So now for us to go out and sell an ad to a car dealer for it to say Bernie Honda, we would then have to be here because we're still paying the rent on this a year later, and there's been, zero coming into it. So when we're upside down on something like this, we we thought it would be best to come here and talk about it, especially after, the situation with Solicitor O'Brien acknowledging the lack of friendliness, so to speak, of Gilbert v. Reed. And as a result of Gilbert v. Reed, at least 9 states, their DOT has changed the billboard zoning to be Gilbert v. Reed friendly. State of Oregon was sued and they lost. Texas changed theirs. Colorado's is in the middle of it. Iowa changed theirs. Missouri, Tennessee, Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, all these states are saying our codes aren't Gilbert v. Reed friendly. They're based on content. And because of Gilbert versus Reed, if you're allowing a sign to say McDonald's here, you can't tell someone they can't put a sign that says McDonald's one up the road. Now, that's the argument that's made. So whether or not that applies here, I'm not the expert, but I'm just saying that was one of the reasons that prompted us to come forward, because we had this lease we were paying on a sign we couldn't fill space on because the movie theater was closed. So I thought, well, if there's any acknowledgement to Gilbert v. Reed, maybe that could be helpful here, because obviously we have our hands tied and, we don't know when the theater is going to open and what's going to happen and, how that whole thing works. So that's the whole long story.
Kevin,
Yes.
you currently have a lease on this sign,
Yes.
and how much a month is that?
Oh, the lease is about $4,000 a year.
And you currently pay electricity on the sign?
Yep, we pay them at the end of the year. We pay the electric bill. We have a sub meter that reads how much utility we use, and then we add that on to the rent.
And that hasn't changed since the shutdown of the movie theater, correct?
No, actually, it's set to go for an increase. So we'll be paying.
So
even
the
more.
only change since the shutdown of the movie theater is the fact that you've lost the.
We lost our captive tenant, and with the on-premise permit, our thought was, okay, if Miller ever doesn't renew, there's Coca-Cola. They buy a couple times a year here. We can advertise Coca-Cola. We could advertise even the pictures themselves if the studios ever, wanted to place an ad, which would make sense. But all of that, obviously can't happen right now.
So basically, Jamie, that would be to prove a variance, you need a hardship. And the hardship would be that the billboard is already in existence, but the business that it advertised is now closed. I'm assuming that's your argument for the variance.
And also, Dan, this, and just in your question about Boscov's, this I think is again a very specific, very different kind of a request for a variance, because this is a third party who's renting the side of the building. Basically, he doesn't own the building, doesn't control the building at all, and so I think that each variance has to be vetted its own way by the board. But I don't think this opens any kind of floodgates, because it is so different. It is such a strange situation. He's already been given the permit originally, and that's what we're here for, basically. Yes.
And I'd add to that, because of that is a unique situation. And personally, I don't think the city should have issued the sign permit in the first place. That technically this really is an off-premise sign. It was not an on-premise sign. When it's owned by a third party and not by the business owner himself, that alone makes it an off-premise sign. But nonetheless, the permit was issued. The sign was constructed in accordance with a permit in good faith, and therefore I believe he should be allowed to keep the sign.
Then Don, why'd you issue the stop? I mean, if that's how you felt, then why do we issue the stop on
the
this?
ordinance, as the zoning officer, I'm bound by the literal terms of the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
The zoning ordinance says an off-premise sign is not allowed in the downtown.
And then that's why we applied also.
Yes.
We understood at that point that we didn't want to be in violation, and we wanted to get it back before the board.
Yeah.
Donna, are there any other off-premise signs downtown that you know of?
There's a few, like I said, you mentioned the one on Mulberry Street. I believe there's one on one of the roofs in the 500 block of Lackawanna Avenue.
I could tell you all of them if you'd like to know.
Yeah, Kevin, you have.
Mr. Joyce, is there many? Is there many?
Yeah, it's funny.
Ballpark.
Let's see, a lot have come down. For example, next to the cathedral, the old jewelry store there, Old Robert's Jewelry Store, used to have 3 on the
Correct.
roof. They came down. Lamar has one at the bottom of the expressway coming into town. Then there's one behind the apartment building. That's also 2 phases. Lamar has one across the street by the credit union, also coming in and out of town. So that's
Strange times.
4 or 5 spaces. Then Lamar added a digital about 3 years ago behind Posh there, across from the firehouse. They added that with the variance. Last year, they were going to start construction on another one coming down Mulberry Street behind MSC Vinyl, Scartelli's building there. If across from the old sewer authority, they were going to put a digital there. I think there was construction problems or something going on. But they were given a variance for there. Then you loop around and you come into Jefferson and you have one above Picardo. And then you have one above Buona Pizza. And then if you take a left and you go down, you have a side-by-side, which was a bulletin. It's now 2 phases, a poster panel by Coney Island there by the underpass. You have a couple bus shelters that are also billboards. I think Lamar may have controlled those. And then there had been 5 or 6 actually across from Perino's when they ripped down everything to build the garages and all the other stuff. I'm trying to think where else. Oh, we have one next to Shealy's or on Shealy's Drugstore. I have one on the old Bittenbender building. And Lamar has another one. I'm drawing a blank, but for the most part, there's roughly a dozen or so billboards.
A lot of them were grandfathered in, I take it, especially the older ones on top of buildings were probably grandfathered in when this
the
ordinance was
old-
put in
most
place.
of grandfathered in,
Most of those were grandfathered in, but I know we did grant the variance on Mulberry Street for sure.
Yes,
Yes.
2.
I know we denied putting an extra sign up on the Picardo's building.
that and across the street on top of the bar over
And
there.
across the street on top of the
Yep.
bar, right.
That was a spacing thing, I think, that one. They were too close to Lamar.
You're right, Mr. Joyce, I remember that meeting. Okay. Anyone on the board have anything?
I tend to agree with Don. I mean, I think this is a prime example of the code is black and white, and then there is a gray area, and that's why we meet and talk about these things. So.
I'll make a motion to vote.
Oh, wait,
Let's hang on.
Yep.
Is there anyone else on here that wants to offer testimony in this case? Anyone else online that wants to offer testimony? At this point, no. Go ahead, Sean.
I'll make a motion to vote.
Second.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
No. By a vote of 3-1, your motion, your variance has been approved.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Whenever you're ready, Don.
All right. Get my, Henry Poljoel seeks variance to use first floor of property as retail or personal service use at 201 Prospect Avenue, R2 zone.
Good evening, Present.
One moment, please. Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Could you please state your name, first name, last name, and your address, and spell your last name, please?
Henry Pujols, Pujols, 719 Hemlock Street, Scranton, PA.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to just speak a little bit louder when you do speak. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me better?
That's good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
You can proceed, Mr. Post.
Okay, I purchased this property 2 years ago with my brother. I wasn't aware that the place is only for office space or storage. My purpose of buying the property was to put a grocery store, which later on. Hello?
Go ahead, keep going.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Yeah. So later on, I spoke to Don King and he explained to me, some of the neighbors and the location, it was not good for a grocery store. Right now I'm looking for variance, trying to open like a small business. It could be like a cell phone, tablet store. And on the right side, put like a small barber shop.
There's a parking problem there.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to get a small business where you don't have that much traffic. So even if I open an office there, it's probably get more I'm going to request more parking spot than a barbershop, or it's more like store. That's what I'm trying to say. Because I'm trying to open a small business where I don't have a lot of traffic flow. That's what I'm trying to open in this place.
And you own this for 2 years now?
2 years, and the taxes are extremely high in this property.
Well, they're high all over the city, not just your property.
No, but
So-
I'm talking about really like 7,000, and like I'm saying, I've been just paying taxes off that. I haven't been making any type of money out of that place.
Yeah.
And,
Let me ask you a question. You had a problem there last summer with, you're running a nightclub out of there, and that's my concern. I know,
Yes.
I know, you can laugh, but the neighbors went through a hard time there. And my concern is.
I bumped into you last time and I explained to you the situation on.
I didn't talk to you. I didn't speak to you.
Oh,
So-
you might not remember.
Maybe I do. I forget.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I just,
Let me
but
tell
that's
you-
in the past. That's in the past. But my concern is,
Yeah, let me
what's
tell
to
you what
stop it from
happened
happening again?
with that place. I wasn't aware the lady was throwing parties in that space.
Okay.
So don't you reach out to me. And I spoke to my neighbors. As soon as I spoke to them, I already knew I was on the run. The lady was on the wrong.
Okay.
But they were not only doing parties, they were also throwing garbage outside.
Oh, I know. I see
So
this.
when I find this out, I wasn't happy with this. And yeah, I'm trying to get
And you
away
shut it down. I'll give you credit. You shut it down. You did it in a timely
No.
fashion too. So that's good.
right away. I wasn't, especially with my neighbors. I want to get along with my neighbors. I don't want, I own property. I live right there in 719. I don't like having problems with my neighbors. And
I think the biggest concern you're going to have from your neighbors, and I'm sure you already heard it, is the parking situation there. You have
That's
the two
why-
apartments. You have the two apartments upstairs, which utilize a lot of parking on in the driveway along the back of that building. I mean, they block the sidewalk, and that's fine. That's the city's problem. That's not our problem at this point. But there's so many parking spots you'd need for each business there. If you're going to put two businesses in. And Don, maybe you can help with this one. How many spots would be required for a barber shop and I'll say a phone store at this point?
I'll take that.
Thanks, Dan.
The barber shop requires 2 per customer seat. In other words, two per seat, plus 1.2 for each employee, for each barber. So if you have 1 seat, you need 2 parking spots. If you have 2 seats, you need 5 parking spots.
Okay.
Dan, when you say seats, you're talking about barber chairs or seats? for
Barber
patients?
chairs.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
barber chairs.
So he needs a minimum of 3.
Yeah, I mean that's out of the picture. I mean, I'm a barber myself. I just needed something to have an income coming from those properties. If the barbershop doesn't work, I have somebody that's willing to rent it to do custom dresses, like Indian red dresses, Indian clothing, which that don't bring a lot of business in either. I'm just trying to find somewhere. And I did spoke to my neighbors. They were the one that actually told me to try to.
Yes,
open
I
a
remember
barbershop.
now. I remember.
Yes, they the one that told me to try to open a barbershop. I wasn't trying to open a barbershop. It's not. I'm working.
This property came before us a couple years back, and it was before your time, before you purchased it. And the neighbors had some problems with the parking, and I came out of there. I think the neighbors would have been happy if an office went in there. Say, I'm not just going to say an insurance office, something like that, where it's minimum traffic and everything. I think they'd be happier with that than a retail store. But I can't speak for the neighbors. I'm sure there might be some here tonight, so. Continue your testimony and then we'll go forward.
I mean, that's all I could tell you. Like, I did spoke to my neighbors. They the one that actually told me about the barbershop. But that's all I can say. I mean, I want something that it don't have a lot of traffic flow to be able to open. I mean, I don't think a cell phone store can bring that much traffic either. It's not everybody goes to a cell phone store every day.
I have a question, and I think it's just because I missed it. I'm reading the application, and it lists office, storage, 2 apartments, barber shop. Are those options, or are we talking about putting all of them?
No. Right, I just put everything that is in the building. Right now, there's 2 spaces downstairs and 2 apartments. What I'm looking for the downstairs, because it's just vacant, it's empty right now.
Okay.
I think, Paul, that under present use, it has office/storage and 2 apartments.
Yeah.
Under proposed use, it would be barber shop, cell phone, and clothing store.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. Is this multiple retailers? Are we talking about like one retailer, whether it be a barber shop or a cell phone place? Because I remember this one, and unfortunately, it was one of those situations where the parking's not going to change. Whether Mr. Pujols gets approved or somebody else has to come in front of us, it's the property. And I'll be honest, I remember last time, I think I was in favor of a grocery store because I think the community is getting back to a point where walkable was good. Not everyone's getting in a car and driving to a grocery store. And you see a lot of them in Southside.
Yes. There's not a lot of, there's a lot of walking in there. I see a lot of people walking all the time in front of the business. That's why when I got the property, I was thinking about a grocery store. But after speaking to my neighbors, I decided not to go for a grocery store.
And there are 2 sides of it. Unfortunately, I think we looked at every angle with that parking, even if it was a 10, 15-minute parking spot in front of the place, and it was very hard to come to something that would work.
Mm-hmm.
But I know there were a lot of ideas thrown around.
Dan, is there anything that is legal for that downstairs in its current state?
Well, your problem is you have 2 apartments upstairs, so you have to have three off-street parking just for the apartments. And that pretty much takes up all the parking. I don't see any other, unless you guys saw other places that you can park outside.
No, this is the problem we ran into last time.
Yeah, there's.
I was told.
I was told to use my office. It has to be something that has minimal cars coming in, minimal traffic.
Yeah. How about like another apartment? Did you ever consider that?
I have considered that, but I think that would take parking space as well. If I put an apartment downstairs.
But it wouldn't be people coming and going all the time. You'd have 1 or 2 people in there that would always be there, not 20 different people throughout the day.
He's going to run the problem with the parking in front of it, Sean, because the setback from that stop sign is going to eat up the most of the front of his building. That's on that corner right there. And his apartments upstairs have more than 1 or 2 vehicles. I mean, the whole side of the building on a normal day is pretty well full. I mean, this building's been like this since Matson's had a grocery store, and then the Idens magistrate, 2 different magistrates went in there, then it's been vacant for a long, long time.
I understand what you're saying. But if you're telling them to put an office in there, there's going to be more traffic daily than an apartment.
Or a small store. That's what I'm thinking.
But at the end of the day, the office closes. That was one of the things that came up the last meeting. At the end of the day, the office goes home, say 4 or 5 o'clock, and the street is open then at that point. But I didn't make an opinion on this or anything like that. This gentleman's a nice gentleman. I did speak to him. Also, I do remember speaking to you a while back. That's all right. But I mean, I'd like to work as much as we can with them to get something in there. I hate to see it vacant all this time, and he's invested in that building. So
are there neighbors here that maybe has some ideas?
is anyone here to give testimony? Is there anyone here to give testimony in this case?
I could talk about it.
Okay.
I think I was.
Kathy, let's swear you in. Let's swear you in. Okay. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Kathleen Madsen. I live at 102 Watchers Drive in Scranton. and I'm the vice president of the Southside Neighborhood Association.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I remember, I don't even know, 2 or 3 years ago, we did have this come across your table, and I believe as a consensus from the neighborhood, we kind of agreed on an office situation. Like Paul said, Mr. Marks said, it is kind of landlocked, and it is kind of hard to fit in because Mr. Poolhouse obviously wants to make a living. It is his property. You should know what you can and can't do, I guess, before purchasing, but I'm not sure an apartment would be really that bothersome there if people are living there. And I also agree that an office would be good. A store, that's really hard. I know right next to you, Evelyn lives right in that ranch house there, and her driveway is literally on top of your building. So I know she's extremely concerned. She contacted me personally, concerned about parking, concerned about noise. She had to deal with all the situation you had in the past. So I know she's not one that's going to support any kind of heavy traffic or anything of the like.
Yes, I spoke to her, not her directly. So I have talked to her after the issue she was having
right
with that lady in the place that she rented. And I understood her 100%. She was the one that gave me the idea of this small business barbershop. I really don't want to go back to cutting hair right now. I do, you know, I'm a barber myself, but I really don't want to put the time in because, you know, it takes a long time to build the clientele.
True.
Indian, you know, this guy told me he wanted to rent it to put dresses in there. I don't see a lot of traffic going into those businesses. So I'm trying to think about my neighbors first before I even do anything. And the city as well. If the city tells me, look, do this, I would do it because I just want something that brings me income. I'm just paying the taxes on this property. That's what I'm looking for. Something that everybody's just happy.
Yeah, I don't know how much, if it's a dress shop or a tailor shop. A tailor shop, obviously.
Yeah, it's like that's like for they got their own costumes, dresses, and stuff like that. He was trying to explain it to me. So I didn't approve it yet. I didn't tell her I was going to rent it out to her because, you know, I got to go to the city first. That's what I told her. And the barbershop and the cell phone, I'm very tacky with the cell phone, stuff like that. So that's why I was thinking about putting something that I could be in and out. Like after work, I could go work a little bit and see if that would bring me some business.
I mean,
I'd be afraid a dress shop is too much like retail.
Yes.
Okay.
Once we open that door for the variance, it's open for retail then.
As
Any kind in there.
As a neighbor, I want you to be successful there, and then also respect the other neighbors and really try and limit as much traffic and parking issues as possible. It's a really busy intersection there. But I wish you luck with whatever the board decides there.
Yeah, can we issue a variance for one business, just for one business on the one side of that right now?
You certainly have that right. Absolutely.
Why don't we look at, and I'm speaking to the board at this point, let them try test the waters for one business and see how it works out with the neighbors, the parking, any problems that can occur, and then go forward. Let them come back again down the road, say in 6 months, and if everything's fine, look at that second part.
Are you talking an office? What are you talking?
That's what I like to see, but you know, because I know if a dress shop goes in there and fails, then it's going to be another retail store coming in there.
All right.
Once it's in there, and Mr. Poles, you're no different than anybody else. Once you start collecting rent, you want the rent, and I mean that's the American way.
But I would not try to put a grocery store. You know, I would try to put, like I was explaining before, something that is, you know, that it won't bring that much traffic in. But
the other board members have an opinion or a suggestion, I guess I should say.
So Dan, when you said we could limit it to one business, can we limit it to one certain business, or any kind of retail would be allowed?
Well, if you say retail, then it's retail. If you say office, then it's office. If you say barber shop that is barber shop, because each one of those 3 areas are specifically defined in our ordinance as being different from each other. So it has to be one of those all-inclusive terms.
Mr. Poulos, did you try renting for office space at all? I mean, have you marketed it all for office space?
I try to market it for office space, but it's very hard. to Find
Yeah,
somebody.
it's a bad time right now.
It's very hard to open up. I was thinking about, I guess, back to school and trying to find something I could do with offices, like selling card plates and stuff, doing paperwork. I don't have time to go. College is too expensive right now.
I mean, Don, for Mr. Poulos, I know like coming in front of us has an application fee and everything. So you can't really ask someone to do that, every time someone may be interested in the property. Is there anything we could do today, even a continuance where, again, I'm just trying to throw out ideas here, but if we approve some type of variance related to an office, is there an ability for him to then go back to you and say, does this meet what was approved, as opposed to having to do this 3 or 4 times?
I'll answer that in 2 parts. One, I've already told them that I would allow an office use to go in there because that's what was there before.
Okay.
And I think, under our ordinance, that as long as he's not making a change, as long as it continues to be an office, he doesn't even have to provide any additional parking, because the ordinance says existing buildings don't have to provide additional parking unless there's a change in the use.
Right.
So on the office end, I don't think he would need to come back to the board.
Yeah, but
that.
I
I think in the alternative, and Dan would have to weigh in on this, I wouldn't have an issue if the board wanted to hold the case open until he came in with a specific use and rule on that.
Where I was wondering.
Let me add here, I'm looking, if you call it a personal service, a personal service includes a barber, beauty shop, a photography studio, a shoe repair, household appliance repairs, and similar uses like that. That at least gives him more options to try to get somebody in there.
And it does limit
I'm
it,
just throwing that out.
it does limit it to like stop a retail, like a clothing store, or a market, like a grocery market store type.
Right, that would not be a personal service. So, can we keep it open until he has something specific? Sure, we can.
Just one more thing for reference here. What is the square footage of the available space?
I don't know the exact square footage, but it's big.
Then that's 2 different stores. They're separated down, Mr. Poulos, right, by a wall through the center?
Well, they connect to each other through the back.
But it's 2 storefronts for now, 2 separate storefronts. Okay.
If I can't get a store, because I know I can get the offices in. The application was for, because I want a retail store, or even if you guys allow me to put in an apartment, I'd rather put in an apartment if I can't get a retail store in there. It's gonna take me a while. I don't have the money to start any of this anyway.
You said you would rather an apartment? Is that what you said? I'm sorry.
I would rather have an apartment in there than not having a grocery store.
I just personally think that would be your best, my personal opinion, because you wouldn't have to keep trying to looking for businesses. It's a little easier to rent an apartment than it is a business on an off street. That's just my personal opinion.
Yes.
We'd have to see how much square foot that he has.
600?
That's what he needs, is 600, right?
I would imagine it's probably quadruple that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering too. Even on the retail end, if it's not
the small one is like 600.
Well, there's 2 apartments.
Yeah, it's 2 apartments upstairs.
There's 2 apartments upstairs. So one, I think, was a 2-bedroom apartment, if I'm correct. And one is a 1-bedroom apartment.
Correct.
So the downstairs could basically be the same because it's a rectangular building. So It's probably about 1,200 square foot total, maybe bigger than that, at least.
Something around there.
Each floor.
Each floor, yeah. So if there's 2 apartments upstairs, there could legitimately be 2 apartments downstairs.
I mean, if we're talking
Well,
about,
then we're going, go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry. I didn't step on you.
talking about apartments, would you consider one big apartment?
One big apartment, and maybe I leave the other one for storage, or
I
I
mean,
mean, I think unfortunately, guys, we're still in a tough spot because, well, I guess even with the 1 unit, the 1.5 spot, but at the end of the day, you can have 4 people in a big apartment, and it's just a tough spot.
Yeah, because we're pushing parking onto the street.
Mr. Gattens, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Tom Patterson,
I got to swear you in, Mr. Patterson. Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
yes, sir.
Please state your name and your address.
Tom Patterson, 524 Emmett Street. I'm the president of the Southside Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Patterson.
Mr. Poolhall, for extra parking, maybe you can answer this, Bob. The garage in the back, maybe if they could tear that down for more parking.
but the thing is, if I tear that down, it's still gonna be hard for them to get
Yeah,
out.
you're still only going to have 2 spots is all you're going to have.
Yeah,
Because
it's
you
still
can't
gonna-
stack the cars like
It's
that.
still gonna have like 4 spots. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, well, it's just a suggestion.
Okay, thank you for your suggestions, mate. It makes sense.
But what you were talking about, the apartment, I mean,
But
that
yeah,
would be a
studio
good
too.
idea.
I think if we went
That
to
would be, consider a better idea than the, having a business in there.
I agree. I agree.
Sean, 1 or 2, one or 2 apartments.
He agreed to do one with the other side for storage, so.
That's I have no problem with that. Because we're only looking at 1 or 2 cars, probably 2 cars on a normal house. There is a vacant lot down the street that 2 doors down, if I'm not mistaken, did you look at possibly getting parking in the back of that lot, Mr. Pujols?
No, because I don't see any phone numbers. I just see an empty lot here all the time. That's right in front of my father's house too. My father owns the house in front of,
In the back of the outlet, the court there, yeah.
and he does got a big spot too, but he put fence in. I feel bad asking him for spots.
So fathers are 4.
But yeah, I'd rather just have 1 apartment at least.
Do we have anyone else to offer testimony on this? Do we have anyone else to offer testimony?
Dan, I have a question for you if I can. Is he able to request 1 apartment the way he submitted this variance?
Well, he can, let's see, let me see what he submitted. He would have to amend the request to a residential apartment. Now, the question becomes, do we have to re-advertise it as a residential apartment and continue it to the next meeting?
That's what I was wondering.
Technically, the answer is yes.
Mr. Pujols, are you willing to make an amendments to your application and wait till the next meeting? Because it will have to be advertised.
How can what's the procedures for that? Because I'm not really sure.
Mr. King will walk you through it, but we're looking at working with you so you can put 1 apartment in there and use the other side for storage, which you had mentioned before.
Okay.
We can't vote on it until next meeting.
Right.
And the reason, Mr. Pujols, we can't vote on it because it was not advertised as an apartment. So we have to advertise the apartment to give other neighbors a chance to come in.
Okay.
But I think for tonight, you can request the board to amend your application for 1 apartment and storage. And then Mr. King can advertise it for the next meeting as that. So you don't have to submit a new application.
Okay, I amend.
And it won't cost you anything more.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, we're trying to work with you, and it sounds like the neighborhood group that have spoken, represent the neighbors, I think, are willing to go this route. I think it's going to be the best solution that the board, the neighborhood, and yourself can come up with. At least it's going to bring an income into your property there.
Thank you. I appreciate it from all you guys.
Is
And I
the
think
board in
it's my-
concurrence with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried this one before. We gotta do something.
I know, at least we got an answer this time, Paul, you know?
Yeah.
Good, good. And don't be afraid to ask your father for that parking down by his house down there. It'll alleviate some of the parking problems. Flip him $5 or something. So, yeah, we're gonna have to vote on this he's gonna ask for a continuance. Is that how we're gonna do it?
Or you're gonna vote on it to allow him to amend
Okay,
and then continue.
okay. So he has to ask for the continuance, so when it comes time, correct?
He has to ask for the amendment, and he has to ask for the continuance.
Yes, I want to amend and continue this on the case.
Good job.
Perfect.
Good job.
Learning.
I'll make a motion to vote on that.
Second.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, by a vote of 4-0, your request for a continuance and a change to the application, amended application has been approved. Get with Mr. King. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to help you with this project to get the paperwork the correct way, and we'll see you next month.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a great
Thank
day.
you very much. Thanks for coming.
Good luck, Mr. Pujols.
Thank you.
You ready for the next one?
Bring it on.
Juan Valdez seeks variance to use 1120 Music Street for automobile sales and repair CN zone.
Very good. Mr. Valdez, you there? Mr. Valdez?
I don't see him on the screen.
Yeah, I thought I did earlier.
We'll move that to the end and see if he comes back.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll
I
try
don't think
it.
anybody else on the screen.
So the next case. The next case is, and I'm not even going to try and say your name, sir. So you can give us your name. It's for the campground on 197 acres on the Morgan Highway.
Take a chance.
Oh, wait, good evening. Oh, good. Should I?
Good evening. Yes, please raise your right hand.
Yeah, my name.
Are you both offering testimony?
Yes.
You're both going to offer testimony? Okay, very good. I swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, please state, each one of you state your name, spell your last name, and your address.
Lori Val Charentin. The last name is Chiarentin, and 60 White Oak Street, apartment 1E, New Rochelle, New York.
Regina Sherrington, Chirentin, 60 White Oak Street, apartment 1E, New Rochelle, New York.
Thank you very much. You can proceed with your testimony.
So I can, Don, you can call me Louis. I go by Louis because I know it's a tough name. So we bought the land. At first, I called Mr. King before I purchased with the intention to open a camping ground. And the place is 197 acres and it's 3 different zonings for commercial, I believe residential and farming. And Don told me the zoning CR would be proper for that. But the only issue is that part is a mountain. It's so steep. We could not build a camping ground there. And I mean, I have to say it's not the most desirable piece of land because it's like really not flat at all. And then the middle of it is this R2 is in the center, is the most flat that we could do something. And I ask the possibility of we rezone to use the area instead of the one in the back of the mountain.
So Donna, we're changing this tonight, Don?
No, he just, the parcel's so big that it actually spans 3 different zoning districts.
Okay,
So a portion of it is CG, I believe. Yes, right along the Morgan Highway. Then as you get into the parcel, it's R2. And then to the rear of the parcel where it's very steep is CR, which is a conservation residential zone.
so Mr. Sherrington, continue. I'm sorry, I just want to clarify that. Continue your testimony, please.
Yeah, I mean, we would like to do in the R2, which is already has some existing roads, and that is a space there where we would like to use for events, outside events such as weddings and parties or something like that, with the option of indoor in case the weather turns bad. And we'd have planning to do like 10 cabins and around 15 space for RVs. And I believe it was 80 campsite. Yeah.
That's what your application says, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unknown caller. Sorry.
Sorry about that. And so I did a little sketch by hand that I sent, but I kind of underestimate the way the things are there. I pay a visit the other day. It seems like you might have to lay out a little bit differently. You know, I mean, of course, the area where I want to do the event outside is a perfect spot. I would not change that, but I would do like the camping sites. Looking for a space that is already certain openings that I don't have to cut any more trees. And
we love trees.
Using the roads, so yeah, I would look and build our own home there too. Eventually, we're going to move in and stay there as our primary residence.
Dan, I don't know if it matters, but on the application, it says 20 campsites.
20.
I think I did that, but then the email that I received was 80 because this is how I'll calculate it. Because if I have a, let's say a wedding camp where the guests come and experience the whole weekend, they don't have to drive after they drink and they go for their tents and cabins. And I would say, let's say the most 200 guests. And I calculate if I have 20 campsites with 3 tents that accommodate 2 to 3 people each, that would be the amount of campsites that I need.
Yeah, Shawn, it was advertised as 80.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because what the application says is 20 campsites with the capacity for 3 to 4 tents each. So I considered that to be, each tent would be a site.
Okay.
It's just a way of how it's expressed.
All right.
So we are voting on, it will be a vote based on 80. I want to make sure we got the right number, the high number for them, so.
Right, we have 80 campsites, 10 cabins, and 15 RV sites, and then some type of a outside event center. Is that what you're talking about, Louis?
Yes.
There's an access road into this, am I correct?
Yes, that is actually a service road that PPL built it, and there is another 2 other roads. Looking the map here that leads to that one big space. I believe they cut the area to put their offices when they were building the power line around it.
I'm going to pop your map up on the screen. But keep talking. Even though we won't see you, we'll still hear you.
Okay.
Those roads that you're talking about are on your property. You own those roads?
Yes.
And they're wide enough for traffic coming and going, two-way traffic? Or will you be making them
well,
wide enough?
Yeah, that, I mean, because it's not being used for a while.
Yeah,
So there is some bushes that have to be cleaned up, but it's wide enough for in and out.
Yeah,
for
not
people to
trailer,
get.
just bushes.
Yeah, because like it was tree that was cut it before, but they didn't take the stump out and they grew back again.
Yeah.
It's like an inch or two thick.
okay.
What is
Yeah.
this map? I don't.
That's the sketch that I
Oh,
did.
okay.
Yeah, I did some campsites after the area for the outside event, but that part already is the part that goes towards down the mountain. And for plumbing, if I had to do plumbing all the way there, would be an issue because that is inclined to the other side. So I would finish all the way there to that open space. I mean, and the other side of the mountain, of course, we probably could use for hiking. That's the only thing I can see because there is also some roads that goes down there.
Does he have to hook up for sewer and water and like gas lines or something up there too?
Well, all that's going to really remain to be seen. If he gets approval and he goes forward with this, would be considered a land development. And that would have to be presented to the planning commission to make sure that the roads and the sewers and all that stuff is designed properly.
And you'd get all the plans for what he's going to be building there too, right?
Yes, yes. But there'd be no reason to do that kind of a detailed engineering.
Right.
Unless he knows he has his zoning approval.
So on that note, in front of us, are we, and again, this one I will say is different. Are we talking about rezoning the entire area or granting a variance to use it since there's three different?
I think we're just granting a variance for this particular 197 acres. Not for anything on either side of this.
Okay.
And that 197 has 3 different categories, correct?
Right now it does, but we could grant a variance so that he could use it for CG purposes or CR purposes.
CR, yeah.
Throughout.
Where is this allowed? The CR by right?
The CR is by right, yes.
Okay. The other
What zone CR he stated was the very mountainous part of it.
Right.
It really is not susceptible to be used for a campground.
Okay. So it's really the other 2 zones that fall into the total area that would need the variance.
Correct.
Are there any houses near this property?
No, there
No,
is a
after
church next to it. Across the street, there is some apartment building there.
But nothing adjacent to it, just that church as you go up the hill a little higher.
Right.
Again, I'll share my screen where I have the aerial zoomed out a little bit. Let me see here. Wow. Maybe not. For some reason, here we go. Can you see that? So this would be the property outlined in blue. This is a little donut hole in here. That property is owned separately by the, how's it listed? Countrywide Conservancy.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, this used to be the Ohio Casualty Building. Now it's a church.
Yep.
This is Fiegelman's Auto Recycling. And Fiegelman's Junkyard is a little bit down lower. There's some homes up in here at the end of Pike Street and Steel Street.
Okay. They're a distance away. That donut hole, the Conservancy, is that part of this property that you're purchasing?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
See if there's anybody here from the audience that wants to give some testimony.
I would. Yes, I do, please. Joe Ruddy.
You raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes, it is.
And please state your name first and last and your address, please.
Okay, my name is Joe Ruddy, Ruddy. I live at 1233 Fulton Street, high work section of Scranton, PA 18508.
Okay. Go ahead, John. You can testify.
Okay, as most of you are aware, this community in North Scranton is comprised of multi-generational families that have been here for years. My oldest daughter lives a block away. My two other daughters are moving into town here in the next year, and you know, people love it here. And I agree with Mr. Sharon that it's a great place to live, but yet it's not set up for camping. I totally have to disagree with that. Putting a campground into city limits, I mean, the Scranton zoning ordinance was created to allow neighborhoods to remain a great place to live, to prevent new development from interfering with the existing use, and to preserve the character of our community where people feel at home. Why we are able to enjoy their surroundings and the surroundings that they are intended for. I can understand the applicant's position. He loves camping. He seems like a really great guy. If he was to build a house there and just live there, welcome aboard. But having 80 campsites, 15 RV sites, 10 cabins, I just don't think it's going to fly. I love riding motorcycles. I love riding off-road motorcycles, but I can't buy a piece of property in Scranton and put like a commercial motocross track on it. It's not going to happen. Somewhere along the way, this applicant should have done a little more due diligence and said, hey, maybe this isn't going to fit here. The applicant cannot claim that a hardship would exist if he's denied a special exception, because a special exception is this special exception would be in opposition to the public health and public safety of the neighbors. Wood burning from the campfires. Come on, you got 80 campsites up there. You got 15 people with RVs. They're all going to have these campfires going at night. Just the odors and the toxins alone from wood burning in such a close proximity. And believe it or not, it looks farther on that map. But if you go on Google Maps and do a distance, Oak Street, the top of Oak Street is only a half a mile from there. My house is less than a half a mile. Allied Services, a large healthcare community or organization, is a quarter a mile. And it's all downhill, downwind from the prevailing winds. Numerous studies have been done by the EPA. I'm not going to get into all that, but you can look it up on the internet. Wood smoke is actually as toxic or more toxic than some like metals that could be burning. People with lung disease, older adults, children, teenagers, I mean, they're all susceptible to it. So in addition, and I'm almost done, as a retired firefighter from the city, I have seen the effects from what an average person would call typical harmless wood smoke. I have responded to open burning calls in the city, calls that were driven by aggravating smell that annoys most people given the close proximity to the homes. This brings me to the section of the zoning ordinance, which requires that a special exception, which I'm pretty sure that CR needs a special exception, even though it's the closest one to what a campground would accept, cannot be in violation of other city ordinances. Other city ordinances, open burning. So you'd have to change that. Many older residents live in North Scranton, and most do without like a mechanical type of air conditioner for one reason or another. And trying to force these people to have their windows closed due to unacceptable air quality, it wouldn't be fair. So this, and as you guys started to say before, there's going to be a lot more to this. Like those roads up there, they're just dirt roads that somebody decided to cut into off the Morgan Highway. The cabins, they're lodging. They're going to be treated as hotels, basically, even though they're smaller. So you're talking sprinkler systems, infrastructure, PennDOT right-of-ways. I mean, that's down the road. I just don't see this whole project really taking off. And I think it should start with you guys, by putting a stop to it right now. I urge you to follow the zoning ordinance that was voted into law for this reason. Support the neighbors, support your fellow Scrantonians. The applicant must present evidence, and he has the burden of persuading the board that his proposal complies with all objective requirements of the ordinance as it pertains to a special exception. The want of something isn't persuasive enough of an argument to grant a special exception. Please vote this down. Thank you.
Mr. Ruddy, can I ask you just two quick questions?
Sure.
What else would this land be? What else could you use this land for? Like, is there anything else that you would think this land could be used for?
You know what? I'm very familiar with this whole area up here, Sean, and you might, I think one of his bigger factors is going to be getting an access that PennDOT's going to be happy with. Even if he was to put a house there, because I know like the hospice up there for Allied, they had to jump through like hundreds of hoops just to get that, even, with a transition from the building that it was before that. So that's a good question. I don't know. Conservancy, walking trails, something along those lines. But anything where you're going to be going out of the ordinary and really getting off the path of what the intent of the land was for, it's going to be a crapshoot. But it's a real rough area up there. It's very rough. It's very rough.
And it seems, my second question is, it seems like the wood fire, was it going to be an issue? Would you have as much an issue with the campsite if there was no wood burning? There's a lot of campsites that do not have wood burning. They have gas where there would.
Personally, no, I wouldn't. No. But the campfires, we have one person that periodically goes against the fire trucks are up here every now and then. And you can tell as soon as the guy lights the fire, like it just, the prevailing winds, the majority of the time are coming down the mountain. And people who like fresh air, I don't want to be breathing that stuff every day. I did it for a living, but we had our own personal protection, but like the smell, it's annoying. It's just, it lingers. I just don't think that for that reason alone, if they're going to have wood burning, that this should be approved.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I interject?
Sure, go ahead. You have the floor. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is
Galdieri.
Frank Galdieri.
I'll have to be
Hang on a second. Let me get you sworn in.
sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, to help you God?
I do.
Please state your name, first and last name, spell your last name, and your address. Thank you.
Frank Galdieri, Galdieri. I reside at 1303 Steel Street in Scranton.
Thank you, Ms. Galdieri.
Good evening, everyone. I am a resident of the city of Scranton and live directly below where Mr. Sharon would like to put his campground. Along with Mr. Ruddy, I also am concerned with the smell of smoke because I'm an avid camper. We have a motorhome. We travel all over the United States and we enjoy camping. However, having 80 or 100 or even 50 campsites right directly above my home and breathing in all that smoke would be a very big concern for us. My biggest concern is, and I don't even know if Mr. Sharon is aware of this, but adjacent to his property is a Superfund toxic site. 10,000 barrels of toxic waste is buried in the ground right there. This has been public knowledge back in the 80s when it all took place. There was not only this site, but a borehole on Kaiser Avenue where they were dumping millions of gallons of toxic waste. My concern is when they start going up there and turning up the ground and diverting groundwater, where's it going to go? I used to go up into that area riding a quad, and I'm very, very familiar with the area. Just like Mr. Ruddy said, it's a big, vast area, and it's very dangerous. There's a lot of rock up there. It's very steep. And when you step on the ground up there, you could actually see toxic stuff coming up out of the ground. I've seen it so many times. So my concern is when you start running a bulldozer up there and churning up the ground, where is that groundwater going to go, and how's it going to affect our homes or anybody here in the city of Scranton? Has anybody taken that into effect?
Don, that'll come under the planning commission.
Yes, that would all have to be engineered and reviewed by our engineer and again approved at a public meeting.
Okay. My second question would be, Mr. Sharon, how are you planning on having access to the campground? Is it going to be off the Morgan Highway?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that there's a weight limit of vehicles coming down Route 307?
No.
Okay. There's a weight limit of vehicles coming down Route 307 because of many accidents that have taken place over the years. I'm a retired police officer with the city of Scranton, and I have personally investigated many crashes with tractor trailers coming down the roads because of the loss of brakes. I could tell you as an avid camper, I've seen a lot of campers out there that don't maintain their vehicles very well. And if you get a vehicle coming down that Morgan Highway in excess of 21,000 pounds and they don't call for an escort and they lose their brakes, some poor family at the bottom of the Morgan Highway is going to be in deep trouble when they come down that highway without with a loss of braking. So you better check into that. There's a restriction on heavy vehicles coming down that Morgan Highway.
And then are you talking about the RVs?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, once after we went for a visit in the land, the RV might be a possibility of not to happen for the fact of being little steep to go up one point or another. We have to check that out, how easy it will be for somebody to drive up there or not, because we got to be realistic and see how these things, because I'm not familiar with RVs, to be honest with you, and I don't know how much up they can go easily.
Yeah, it would be very dangerous for a heavy vehicle coming down that Morgan Highway, especially if they're not a very well-maintained vehicle. We could end up with a tragedy. But my biggest concern is the toxic waste up there. What's going to happen when you start churning up the ground and diverting the groundwater? Where's it going to go? How's it going to affect public health?
Is this toxic waste is a fact that really exists there, or
it
which area is that?
If you look it up, you can see it on online. There's like I said, about 10,000 barrels of toxic waste still buried up there.
Is that in the bottom of the mountain or on the?
It's right next to your property, sir. Right next to where you are.
Oh, next. It's not in my property.
It's next to it.
Right next to it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, scare me.
It used to be a city. It was a city dump at one time, and they accepted a lot of toxic waste illegally. But it is buried up there, and it is a Superfund toxic site with the state of Pennsylvania.
Right. That's the reason I was trying to rezone, because when we use the middle of the land, which is the R2, is the place where if you have to do sewer, it goes towards Morgan Highway instead of going to the other side by the train tracks or where the houses are.
Well, I could tell you right now, like I said, I used to ride a quad up there years ago, and trying to get down the side going in toward the notch into Chinchilla would be pretty impossible trying to put a road in there.
No,
I mean, there is already existing roads there.
I wouldn't want to drive an RV on it.
no,
No,
RV.
that's why, that's why I was telling you, like, it might be changing with the RV, because I myself have to kind of, after I went there the first time, I had to change my car because I couldn't get up. My little Mitsubishi couldn't go there. I had to change to a pickup truck. So I was figuring that out, that you might have to change.
Yeah, and then another concern would be noise at night. You know, this is a very quiet neighborhood where we reside. That's why I bought my home here 37 years ago. It's country living within the city, and I don't want to hear rowdy people drinking and carrying on at all hours of the night, because the sound will travel, and we're not that far away from where you're located.
Yeah, but I believe, I mean, especially if there is an event going on, I believe there is a curfew. Isn't that right?
Sir, you said you're an avid camper, am I correct?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
No, it's
You said that you like camp. You said you enjoy camping, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, well then if you've ever been to a campground, you know people don't abide by curfews.
Oh, I see. Yeah, we're always gonna have some people that doesn't follow the rules.
Exactly.
Sure.
So I don't want to have to hear the people carrying on at 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, right down the road. And like Mr. Ruddy said, he's not that far away either. So it's going to affect any resident that lives within a close proximity to where you're planning on building this campground. These are all concerns of citizens that reside close to you.
But you realize this is 197 acres of land, right?
I understand that, sir, but I could hear people shooting up there all the time. I could hear coyotes. The sound travels. I mean, we're not that far down the road from you. I understand it's 197 acres, but we're not far away, sir.
Okay.
Not at all.
Am I correct, Mr. Ruddy?
Yes, you are. And Mr. Galdieri, if you don't mind, I just want to ask Mr. Walsh, Shawn Walsh, just one more question here. Mr. Walsh, you mentioned before about would I have any other issues other than the campfires. I want to reclassify that, because the policing, not the city police, I mean, this person policing this ground, I almost think it'd be impossible unless he had a little security force up there to instill into these people that you can't have a campfire at a campground. You can't be loud at night. So again, just to add to that, I just don't see this project going anywhere.
I mean,
thank you.
Rephrasing.
Mr. Chartain, do you plan on having security there on the site at all times, like a security officer or?
Yes, because this will be running like a real business.
And we're gonna be living there.
I'm gonna make sure, yeah, I'm in there, and then we're gonna do this like summer, fall, maybe spring. It won't be all year round.
But there will be someone there monitoring if there is a problem.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna be there.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else here to offer testimony?
Yes, I would like to.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but your truth?
I do.
Help you God.
So,
Please state
yes.
your name and address.
My name is Bob Markowski. I'm Associate Vice President with Allied Services, and I'm here representing Allied Services this evening. I just want to echo Mr. Ruddy and Mr. Galdieri's concern. Allied Services has tremendous concern over the potential for wood burning campfires. As was stated before, the the prevailing wind predominantly does come down the mountain. As you know, the main campus for Allied Services is located 475 Morgan Highway. We operate an inpatient rehabilitation hospital along with a skilled nursing facility and a hospice facility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As you know, the codes for healthcare require certain amounts of outside air exchanges through our air handling units. Periodically, we do have to take procedures to mitigate smoke from, brush fires in the area, et cetera. It's a tremendous nuisance, but, as was stated, it could also be a health concern for the residents and the patients in those facilities. Allied Services would just like to go on record this evening as voicing significant concerns, in particular about the wood burning campfires. Obviously, we do want to be good neighbors. We do not want to in any way inhibit, any type of development or progress, but that is a significant health concern and a safety concern that, we would just like to raise this evening. So thank you. Just wanted to go on record as stating that.
Thank you, Ms. Markowski.
You're welcome, Mr. Gattens.
Anyone else?
I have a question for Don, but if there's still testimony, I'll wait.
We're good, Paul.
Okay, Don, with the campsite, I understand this would have to go to planning commission. There's still a lot of stuff that would need to be done. But, and again, maybe I'm not alone here with the, this one being a new one, but what type of regulations are there? Is it similar to a state park? Can someone just light a fire, or is there regulations related to that?
There are regulations. The city does have an open burning ordinance, and the city is under the National Fire Protection Act. I think both of them do allow certain types of not open burning, but they have to have a grate, or they have to have some type of a flue, and certain recreational fires are allowed under the codes. So, that was certainly something we would have to work with the fire department and the fire chief on to make sure that whatever they do fire-wise would have to be in compliance with the city ordinances and the National Fire Protection Code.
Okay, so to kind of ask a stupid question here, there's certainly no way that if there's 80 campsites that any given time there's 80 fires going.
I don't know.
Okay.
Can I say something? When you say 80 campsites, because it's like, as I put in my application, it's 20 campsites with 3 tents. Basically, it will be 20 burning bonfire, whatever. It's not going to be one for each tent, because it'll be 3 tents in each campsite. I don't believe every tent want their own individual fire.
Okay, that's where I'm trying to get some understanding here of, what to picture, what it could be, what its intended use is, I don't know what an average night in the summer might be like there.
And certainly, I think the board's allowed to put reasonable conditions on any approval, and a reasonable condition could be the number of campfire sites or wood burning sites that are allowed on the property.
Well, let's expand on what Paul's saying here a little bit. So now we have it now down to 20 at the tent camping areas. What about the cabins? Are each one of them going to have a burning site?
Yeah, I didn't think about that. My plan for that, because my budget is not the biggest budget. I was planning to build the cabins using our trailers or truck trailers and divide them by 3, so it would be the same as the campsites. It would be for like 3 cabins. They probably will use also 1 fire for each, because they were sharing the same trailer, just dividing with walls.
Obviously, this would all have to go in front of planning commission, but I don't know if anybody, Donna, or if anybody, how far or how many acres away are these neighbors that are complaining about the fires? I mean, 200 acres is pretty large. So I'm just curious, like, it's hard to tell on the map how far these houses are away from this actual camp area.
I'd say approximately 5 to 10 acres at the most.
Well, there is, I'm sorry, there is, besides the line of my property, there is other conservancy, countryside conservancy also all around, which expands the size way more, which there is no houses or anything there.
If you look on the map, you can see where the homes are in the Pike, Steel Street, Clover Street area. We're not far away at all. Believe me, as I said, I'm very familiar with the area. I've walked it, I've ridden it. I know the area like the back of my hand. And not only with the toxic waste that I'm concerned with and smoke, but again, noise. You're going to have, if you have 80 campsites, it's not going to be 80 people there. You're talking probably 4 or 5 people to each campsite. That's a lot of people to be in one area and not far from a residential area. You're going to hear that noise. It's going to travel. The smoke is going to travel. You're going to have a whole change of the way people live and have lived for the past 40, 50 years in a peaceful neighborhood. It's going to completely change our way of life.
Shawn, if I could interject here for a second, Allied Services is 3,000 feet from the center of this gentleman's property where he's able to build. The neighborhood down off of the expressway, just north of Penn Foster, the old ICS, is 2,000 feet line of sight travel. My house is approximately 3,800 feet. So everything's less, like it's a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile average, which, I mean, you can walk that in what, 8 minutes?
20 minutes.
So, and it's not even so much that I think 1 fire, 2 fires, who's going to say the amount of smoke that's coming off of these? I don't think that's a measurable point at all. I think you guys, you have to look at this from where you're standing from a zoning ordinance perspective. Okay. Not a wish list. I mean, Mr. Sharantine seems like a great guy, like I said before, but I don't think a whole lot of thought went into this. The want shouldn't be something that's going to persuade you guys. You have to look at the law of the ordinance and its intent and why it was developed.
And for the record, I just did a measurement. It looks like the closest part of this property to the closest home is about 1,800 feet.
That's not far. Quarter mile is 1,320 feet.
Now, is that, just for clarification, is that the portion of the property that they're going to be using for the campsites?
No, I measured from the closest portion of the property to the closest home. So that would be the closest.
Right.
And again, you're not just the smoke, noise, water runoff. We have to be concerned about all these things. And
again, Mr. Galdier, that'll come before the planning commission. Like ours is just the variant, as you know. I mean, it's just the variance here. This is new to this board, and I'm sure any board. I don't think we ever had a recreation area set up in the city before. Not that I know.
And just like I believe it was Mr. Ruddy said, I don't think a lot of thought went into this planning or these ideas. It's a nice thought, but as far as being practical, knowing the layout of the land up there, how close it is to a residential area, I don't think it's a good idea.
But you think because the amount of campsites, because you keep thinking about 80, which is 20 actually, because you think about how many fires will be there.
Mr. Sharantine, let me interrupt you and just say this. If somebody goes up there, which I could tell you how many times I've heard it, you get people that go up there in the middle of the night and party. They'll take their car, they'll go up there and they'll carry on. So you're talking 4, 5, 6 people. It is extremely loud. There's a lot of people that go up there to target shoot, and it's very loud. And it's not far from our home, sir. It's not far at all.
Yeah, people go there for hunting too. I met already a couple of hunters there myself, and
well, you're not allowed to shoot you're not allowed to shoot a weapon in the city, so I don't know what they were hunting.
I don't know what they're doing, because I was like, okay, where are you?
Right, but I could tell you how many times I've had, you know, people come up there and shoot, or like I said, go up there and party and carry on in all hours of the night. We hear that because we're not far away. It's just over a quarter mile away. It's not far at all, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing some ashes there, like charcoals, because
exactly. And so picture that you have half a dozen people doing that. Now picture 250 people doing that. 80 campsites. You're not going to have one person on each campsite. You're going to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people at a campsite. I know. I'm an avid camper. We go all the time. So I could tell you that you're going to have a lot of people up there, and that means a lot of noise, a lot of smoke, a lot of traffic. And again, I don't think any thought went into the idea of heavy vehicles coming up and down that Morgan Highway. That's a very steep road.
Mr. Galdieri,
downgrade.
Mr. Galdieri, maybe you can answer a question for me. Besides your home right there, how many other homes are right in that area?
7.
Say about a 200-foot area right there.
7.
7. Okay, thank you. Mr. Ruddy, how about your area? Is that the same area?
No, I'm over. I'm just like southwest of Allied there on the mountain.
Okay.
And there's at least between us and Oakwood, probably like over maybe 100.
So you're on the other side of Morgan Highway?
Yeah, I'm on the opposite side of the Morgan Highway,
Okay.
but line of sight travel, I mean, you know, you could pretty much see this. I could see the Morgan Highway auto parts from my place.
Sure. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Anyone else? Board? Board, are we looking for any contingencies on this?
I just had a question. What else is allowed in this area? Obviously, they don't want a campground. What other kind of business can they come across in the future if we turn this down? Is there any other things that would be allowed in here?
Well, again, I'm gonna share my screen so you can see the different zoning districts there.
I know sometimes you turn down something that's less harmless and you wind up with something that you might not like.
I was actually wondering the same thing, Sean, because if I believe there's a good amount of this is it R2?
Well, it's here's the Morgan Highway here. So, well, I'll just do a quick measurement there. So the first almost 1,100 feet or almost 1,200 feet is general commercial, allows just, I mean, that's just short of industrial. So it allows all type of retail, commercial, and a lot of manufacturing. The R2 zone here, which is in purple, would allow housing, homes, some townhouse development. The conservation residential is the most restrictive. Doesn't allow much more than homes or, like you said, some type of recreational uses because of the steep slopes that are involved there.
Could you put in that map where a roundabout area where he was thinking about putting that campground?
I think you, and Louis, if you could say, I think you were more like in the center area.
Yeah.
Yes, R2.
Yeah.
Right there on the what is a little open net.
I mean, that looks to be 30, 40, 50 acres away from houses. Am I correct? Or
Yeah, but it's not so much the square footage, Sean, it's the distance. Like, you can't really go by acreage. You got to go by distance, like a straight line.
Like I said, I measured from here, his closest point to these would be the closest homes. And we're talking 1,844 square or feet.
Well, you as the board could increase that by putting a buffer on that side. 200-foot buffer, 300-foot buffer.
From the property line.
From the property line.
Yeah, but is that going to change the, if that's a flat, I'm just questioning, if that's the flattest piece of land that he has to work, I'll say a campsite on, by putting that buffer on, is that pushing him off that site?
Can I say something? There is already a really 20 feet high wall of rock there. Right next to the existing road there by the entrance here. If you see like a rough spot, it seems like open, that is all rocks. And it goes at least 20 feet high, straight like a wall.
And that's in this area here?
Yeah, that's all rocks and really high.
So he's not going to be in that area anyway.
Just for you.
Yes, that's the area where, I mean, next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right there.
I'm looking at his map and this map, just so the area where he's showing the campgrounds and the RV parking is right in here.
Yes.
So Mr. Galdieri, would you rather like an industrial complex out the front there than camping? Like, would you prefer that?
Absolutely, because again, as an avid camper, sir, we go to campgrounds throughout the United States. And I could tell you, as Mr. Sharantine said, well, there's a curfew. Curfews are not followed at a lot of campgrounds. You could hear people carrying on at all hours of the night. I've had many instances where 2-3 o'clock in the morning, you're trying to fall asleep and you got people carrying on that are rowdy, and these are places with security. People want to have fun. They want to go, they want to enjoy themselves and get away for a weekend. But the problem is the sound travels. And the same thing with the smoke. The smoke is going to be barreling down this mountain. I mean, 1,800 feet is not a very significant distance to be away from homes where you're going to be putting in a campground with God only knows how many sites. And
you're a lot further than 1,800 feet. You're a lot further. You're talking from the property line, not from the center of the property where he's putting the campsites.
It doesn't matter, sir. Mr. Walsh, I can tell you right now, you go up there, I could go up that mountain right now, have you stand at my home, and I could yell to you, and you're going to hear it. I guarantee it. From experience, I guarantee it.
Don, I have a question.
Yes.
Just as a reference, there was a development project on, it didn't go anywhere, but it was in North Scranton, if you remember, kind of bordered 81.
Yep.
Did that fall in an R2 zone?
I don't know. I'll tell you in a second.
Okay.
The problem with that
part of it was an R2.
Yeah, the problem with that project was the access or the lack of access.
Yeah.
Because I remember that got, it was one of those things where the land was looked at differently by one person and the intentions were not favorable by the neighbors.
To say the least.
Yeah. And again, I think Sean's trying to almost play a little bit devil's advocate here and say, absolutely, we're listening to everything, but there are things that could be done with that property that, and I don't want to say better or worse, but it may be less appealing.
All right. Could I just chime
Sure.
in for a second here? I could see Mr. Walsh's point, and I could see like a counter to options, but the area that is the CG area, if somebody was to build a factory there, it'd probably be like at about a 50-degree angle. unless they excavated like massive amounts. And that's after they moved the big high power line that runs up alongside the Morgan Highway and another one perpendicular to it. So, theoretically, yes, it is a CG area, and yes, somebody could build there, but like in an absolute world, it's never going to happen.
I can tell you,
Just because of the contour of the land there, it'd be almost impossible unless somebody wants to put a ton of capital into just the excavation part of it.
when Leahy Family Fun Park was built, I remember speaking to the people up there, and they said that they spent an astronomical amount of money that they didn't plan on spending because of the amount of rock that's up there. So believe me, you're in for a big excavation deal up there. It's all rock. Like I said, I've walked it, I've ridden it, I know those trails like the back of my hand, and you are in some deep trouble up there with that land. As far as putting a factory, never going to happen.
And another thing too, Mr. Galdieri, if I may, perhaps if more people knew about this. I mean, I just seen it in the Scranton Times on Monday morning. I go up the Morgan Highway quite often, and I didn't see any postings. There was nothing on the trees, telephone poles. Matter of fact, I went up today. There's nothing up there, which is supposed to be one of the rules. The owner's responsible for that, and that did not happen.
Yes, that did happen because I posted it myself, and the posters are still there.
Well, I didn't see them. I really didn't. And I took as slow of a possible ride up that highway as I could, up and down. But nevertheless, it's just, I think, if and it does. I don't know how many more people other than us three, and Allied is speaking for a lot more than just Mr. Markowski was himself. That alone is going to be. I think it's just opening up for future issues down the road that aren't going to be solved by trying to say, well, what would you rather, a factory or a campground? I mean, that's really besides the point.
The other concern I do have, and I will say this, as an owner of a motorhome, and when I pull out of my home and try to get onto the Morgan Highway to leave our area, it takes me sometimes in excess of 15 minutes to wait for an opening to safely pull out and gain access to go down the Morgan Highway. And I'm only a quarter mile away from the bottom of the Morgan Highway. But the amount of traffic, like Mr. Ruddy said, that going up and down that Morgan Highway, the cars that go up and down that highway fly. They don't drive slow. I could tell you that. They're not following a speed limit. And trying to get any type of a camper, an RV, a fifth wheel, trying to pull out, even a pop-up, trying to pull out onto that Morgan Highway safely is going to be a big concern.
I'm going to step in here. I mean, because we've heard an awful lot of testimony on this tonight, and
I appreciate you listening to us.
No, that's fine. That's what we're here to do. I mean, we're here for the neighbors in that area as well as the applicant. Would it be possible with the neighbors? Like you said, there's only a few here tonight. Maybe some didn't know. And a lot of times these Zoom meetings are tough to do. Is it possible that we could set up a meeting between the applicant and the neighbors and talk this out and maybe try to work to a means that, ends where everyone is, say, sort of satisfied. And if you come out of that meeting, like we could table this to next month and come out of that meeting and go from there.
Just have a special meeting just for this topic alone?
Just for you guys to get together someplace and let him roll that plan out better so it's more in the open, discuss it more. Sure. You can voice it. And we did this, we tried to do it that North Scranton project that Paul brought up, and it kind of got a little nasty, but
Yeah.
if you do this, let's be on friendly terms.
Oh,
with
no,
everyone.
yeah, no,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh,
I mean, he
absolutely.
is a
Well, I
guy, a
have-
gentleman that and his wife that want to invest in the city, which, I mean, we all know. I mean, especially the roles you guys had, that's important in
Right.
the city, but
I have
we
no
also got to look at
problem
the
against
neighborhood.
Mr. Sharon whatsoever. I have no.
Oh, I know,
no
and that's
regard
evident.
against
It's evident in your conversation, so that's
But
good.
Yeah.
my concern is the things that I had voiced concerns
Yes.
about. I'm an avid camper. I love camping. I think it's a great idea, but not for this area.
Okay.
No.
I'm being honest.
But yeah, I'd be willing to, to sit in a meeting. I have no problem at all with that. I have the
I
time
mean,
to
it's
do
gonna
it.
be a meeting that you and Mr. Sarantine, maybe we could ask Ally to open up a room over there if it's possible. I'm not sure with the virus, but then just, let the neighbors get together and talk it out and come back next month and finish this up.
Right. Well, I can't speak for Allied. I mean, Mr. Markowski, I don't know if he's still online or not, but
No, I think he came off, but I mean,
Yeah.
we'll find some other point up there that maybe we can just get together. And Mr. Sarantine, are you in agreement with something like that taking place?
Yes, I have no problem.
Good. I
Yes.
mean, this way, maybe you get a better understanding of what the neighbor's concerned about, and maybe it's something you can work out different and vice versa. You know what I mean? And then we can continue this to next month and you guys get together and do your best to try to work it out, and hopefully it has a happy ending for everybody at that point there.
Mr. Gattens, who's going to coordinate the meeting?
You, so.
Huh?
You.
Well, that's
Look at.
Yeah.
We can't do that. Mr. Markowski's back online and he's very good at setting up meetings. I've had many with him.
Thank you, Mr.
Bob, is
Gatt.
there any way Ally can open up a room?
I
I'm not
don't
sure with the
see-
virus if it's possible or anything, so.
I would think so. Obviously, we'll just have to check, with certain restrictions to COVID, but
Right.
I believe we can work something out. I think we'd be more than happy to do that and actually love to be a participant in it too.
Yeah, I think it'd just be best for everybody involved to, a lot of times these plans come, especially one of this nature that's new to everybody in the city, this type of project. And the neighbors and the developer or the applicant never really talk beforehand. And I think a lot of times we come out with just better endings. And maybe the neighbors will still be against it, maybe it'll change heart or vice versa, we don't know. So, Bob, if you can,
Yeah, let
handle
me,
that.
if it's okay, let me work on it tomorrow and maybe
Yeah.
I'll, Don King, if it's okay with you, I'll maybe get in touch with you and we can get some contact information.
That'd be fine.
Okay. Great.
Mr. Gattens, may I ask one more question and then I'll let
Sure.
this
You
rest.
still run the meeting, Joe. Go ahead, sir.
My question would be, if more momentum builds up on the negative to this campground between now and after we have our meeting and before the next actual zoning meeting, is that going to, impress upon anybody, or change anybody's minds or make it a more,
I don't think any of us really made our minds up, and I could speak for myself because.
But we could
it's
meet
compelling on both sides,
we could meet with Mr. Sharon as a small group here, and then the momentum builds afterwards, and it could change the whole outlook of what our meeting actually, the consensus of our meeting.
Well, I gotta say, in talking to the board here now, I don't think we'd accept any more testimony. We'd just like to see you guys get together and.
No, but how about the people that are going to be coming on board next meeting that
They should have been at this meeting. They should have been at this meeting.
Okay, and I guess
You know what I'm
that's what
saying?
getting at. That's exactly what I'm getting at is, yeah.
They should have
Okay.
been at this meeting. We
I
did
thought-
this with different projects throughout the city, the school for the deaf and up on 307. We heard the
Okay.
testimony and everything. We try to get the groups together and then we'll
Good.
end it next month.
Good.
Board, are
Good.
you in agreement on that?
Yeah.
Yes. And Don, I know we're pretty lenient, but how close are you supposed to be to the property to be able to complain about a problem with the property?
200.
Well, I think the standard is that you're affected by the project, and there's not a hard and fast number.
Yeah, if you're affected, you have to be heard if it's 200 feet.
Yes.
But outside of the 200 feet, you would have to have been affected by the project.
Thank you.
So is everyone in agreement for that? On the board?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have actually, I don't know how feasible it is, but one of my thoughts was it might be really good if some people could meet there.
I
My
agree
only
with that because I would love to see it myself.
My only
Kevin,
concern is that people are not aware of what's going on, that they're not aware of this meeting.
Well, in all honesty, Mr. Calderi, it was advertised in the paper.
Yeah.
We just went through this with the project in Greenridge last month. Neighbors come out and
Well,
said
to
it
be
wasn't
honest,
there.
with you, sir, I don't get the newspaper.
I
was
understand
only
that, and I
informed-
agree with that. I agree with
I
that.
was
And
only informed by a friend that told me about it. So I wouldn't have known about it.
Well, all the board can do is follow the law, and the law is to advertise it in the paper and to post it.
Yeah.
And
Mr.
to-
Penetar, can I
and
ask
to
you one
serve
question?
anybody. I'm sorry, Joe.
Mr. Walsh just made a comment that he'd like to go up to this site. I don't think that's allowed by the ordinance of zoning, is it? Outside of this meeting?
Well, normally, most of the board members at least drive by a property that's up for
Okay,
a variance, so they can familiarize themselves with.
but he couldn't go up and meet with the owner of the property
No,
there.
he couldn't go up and meet with the owner.
Okay.
No.
Okay, good. All right.
He could go up on his own and look at the property.
Okay, all right, I agree with that.
So we're
Thank
good?
Yep,
Well,
we're
that's
good.
This is a good meeting. This is a very good meeting tonight with this.
Yeah, it was.
So, Mr. Shaheen, do you want to ask for a continuance till next month then?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't want to do anything that I can't do it. I just.
Well, I try to appease everyone here, and you know what I'm saying? And
yeah, if I have to downsize and make it smaller, it doesn't really matter.
no, let's.
That's why you want to
ask
talk
for
about
a
it.
continuance to next month, and we'll get to next month. And hopefully, Mr. Markowski can put a room together where you guys can meet. He'll go through Mr. King. Mr. King will reach out to everyone and get that together. Our board will not be involved in it because we can't be.
Okay.
So it's all on you guys to be nice to each other when you're talking and everything. And tonight's a good example of the meeting because it was very, very, very friendly type conversation back and forth. That's how it should be.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all for
Thank you. So we have to do a vote. We have to do a vote on this. So I need you to ask for continuance.
Yes, want to ask you for continue.
Very good.
Yeah.
Mr. King?
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Gattens.
Yes, by a vote of 4-0, the continuance has been granted until next month, and let's get this worked out.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night now.
Good night.
Good night.
That's it, Don?
That's it for that. We have Mr. Valdez on the line now for 1120 Music Street, seeking a variance for car sales and car repair.
Bob, can we take a 3-minute?
Let's take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
I just have a couple of bit of break. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Send it to me. It's on the market now. Crap.
Just tell him it's Myrtle Beach in the fall.
We had a long conversation with Mary Richards. So if they don't, then he will keep. He told him they can.
I could hear you. So.
Get the hands.
I'm back.
You were missed.
Yeah, sure. Let's do the next scheduled case, and the gentleman that came in late, we'll do him at the end.
Okay.
That sound good?
Sounds fair.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. He was, to be fair to him, he was trying to get in. I texted him. He was having issues signing into the Zoom.
Okay. I mean, it's no problem he's late or anything, but let's just, I don't see this next one being a long case anyway.
Okay. Alexandre Russin seeks a variance or a special exception to change from a dental office to a single chair hair salon at 1030 Greenridge Street.
Yes.
Do we have everybody back?
Mhm.
Everyone's good to go?
I think so.
Yeah, we have the 4 board members.
Yes.
That's all that matters then. All right. Do you want to raise your right hand, please? Do we have video on this?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see anybody. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, she's here.
Okay, good.
I could see her.
All right. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, please, there you go. Please state your first and last name, spell your last name, and then give your address. Thank you.
My name is Alexandra Russin, Russin, and my address is 1043 State Route 307, Springbrook, PA 18444.
Very good. You can proceed.
So I am looking to buy 1030 Greenridge Street. It was a dentist office, a larger dentist office. I'm just looking to put a single chair salon in there. I'm looking to buy the building. I would like to retire there, be there like for a very long time. Yeah, the property's perfect for me. It doesn't require any construction. The dentist office had the plumbing in there already. It's really good to go, other than the zoning. So that's why I'm here.
Because it was a dentist office for many years, as far back as I could remember, this would be a change from one non-conforming use to another. So
Right.
that's why it's a special exception and doesn't need a variance.
Right. How many parking spaces do you have there?
There's 4 parking
Is
spaces.
it right in the rear? Is that in the rear? Did I
Yes,
see?
yes.
Okay. And Dan and Don, that meets what they need for the one chair, am I correct?
That's correct.
As we spoke at that first case there on Prospect Avenue.
Is there apartments above that?
There's 1 2-bedroom apartment upstairs that there's a couple living in, and they only have 1 vehicle.
And how many parking spots did you say you had there? I'm sorry.
There's
4.
4 parking spots.
So you're gonna, Dan or Don, she's gonna be short 1 spot, am I correct in that?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I'm just gonna pop up.
Well-
Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly good sized parking
Yeah.
pad in the rear there. I mean, and theoretically, with the 1 chair, if people can park each other in there if they had to, and there's more than 4 spots available.
Alexander, you're gonna work it yourself. You don't have any other employees?
Yes, it's just me. I actually currently own the salon. I've been open over 4 years. I'm in Dunmore. I have to leave my spot. I'm being evicted. My landlord is going to be taking over the building where Henry's on Clay is in Dunmore. So I'm looking to buy this building as soon as I can and get my salon going as soon as possible, if possible.
Anyone else on the board have questions? Is there anyone here to give testimony on this case?
I did have the director of the Scranton Library was here. He was going to be for me, but he had to leave the meeting, unfortunately.
I did see him on the screen.
I thought so too. Is there anyone else? I don't see anybody.
I'll make a motion to vote.
Second.
We had someone.
Oh. Where are we?
I was gonna speak.
Okay. Takes
Christina
time to get
Moyer.
through. Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your first and last name and spell your last name and then your address, please.
Christina Moyer, Moyer. My address is 3440 Madisonville Road, Madison Township, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I'm actually a realtor for Alexandra, and we, found this perfect property. And we did have the Scranton Public Library was here for us on our behalf. They wanted the foot traffic, and we are intending to close in 7 days. And hopefully Ally can, keep her business open. That's really the goal.
You're right next to the library, if I remember
Yes,
correctly.
yes.
Okay. That it?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
I'll make that motion to vote again.
Second.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Gattens.
Yes, by a vote of 4-0, your special exception has been granted. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for
Good
your
luck with your
time.
business. Thank you. Next.
Next case, Juan Valdez, 1120 Music Street, seeks variance to allow car sales and car repair. This would be, Bob, you and I would remember it, and Mr. Morris is the Prefera's Pizza site.
I think Morris worked there for years. Yes, I do remember that very well. Mr. Valdez, you there?
You have to unmute at the bottom of the screen, click on the little microphone. I might be able to do it.
There you
Okay,
go.
can you hear me?
You got it.
Yeah,
Now
there
we
we
can
go.
hear you.
Hi.
Okay,
My
please
name
raise
is
your,
Nieves
no,
Abad.
hang
I'm from,
on. Hang on. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
yes,
Okay, now you can say your name and address. Please spell your last name, though.
my first name is Nieves, my last name is Abad, A-B-A-D. I'm at 747 Delaware Street, Forest City, Pennsylvania, 18421.
Are you the applicant? Have we got the right one here? Are you the applicant?
Yeah, he's representing the applicant.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's what. Go ahead, please. You can continue, sir.
All right, so we have, we just rented the building here at 1120 Music Street, and we're looking to add a repair shop and do possible car sales around the building. No construction really needs to be done. It's already a clear, flat ground. There's 45 customer parking spaces in the front and 235 parking spaces that will be added to the back and the side of the store. We're right on the side of 81, the highway, and we're in a commercial area. We're basically just looking to do a little bit of retail out of the store, auto repair, and car sales.
Okay, how many cars you're gonna have? How many cars you're gonna have in your inventory to sell?
We had outlined at 235 total parking spots. Not to say that they're all going to be taken at once. Especially the first couple of years is only going to be like less than 100 probably,
Okay.
until we get bigger.
That's pretty big. Hundreds.
Yeah, we had a store out in New York. We used to sell cars at, and we averaged about 100 cars at a time when we did sell cars and everything.
Very good. So you're gonna park your vehicles in the front, some of them on Music Street facing the street, I take it?
No, that's all customer parking spots up front.
So your
Our
sales,
cars are
your
gonna
sales
park in the
area is gonna be
front.
in the rear?
Yes, rear of the building.
All that equipment
Rear and the
that's back
side of the
there,
building.
all that equipment that's back there, is that all gonna be cleaned out of there by the electrical company that was there, or?
Yes, they're just paying month to month by now to the landlord, but they were supposed that their project lasted like 6 extra months, so they're leaving any month now, and all that area is going to be cleared.
Okay, yeah, because I was up there looking at it today, and it's pretty nasty back there. And I'm assuming if you're gonna put your stock back there, it's gonna be cleaned out.
Yeah, they were contractors working for PennDOT on the bridge there on Music Street, and I think some of the work on 81, and that they should be wrapping up on that pretty soon.
Okay. Now, you're saying you're gonna do car repairs. Is there a garage back there?
Yeah, there is a bay in the back of the building, and there's 2 bays in the back of the building. One bay we were looking to do car repair out of.
I didn't see that. I didn't go too far on the building because I didn't know if anyone was there, and I didn't want to get yelled at for being on their property or anything. So,
yeah, we marked the section off on the plans right there where it says auto repair,
yeah,
and it states where the lift gate is and stuff right there. Because that's already there. It doesn't work right now, but we're going to be fixing it.
Yeah. So you're gonna have that entire property. So looking at the old Ferris Pizza building, you're going basically all the way over to that fence along the highway. Is that where this property goes to? There's a chain link fence.
Yes.
On that. Okay.
Yes.
And everything will enter and exit off of Music Street?
Yes.
Okay. And maybe it's on here. I don't have glasses on. That's probably the main thing. But do you have customer parking marked off on here?
Yes, they do in the front. It says
I see it now. 45 total
customer.
customer. Yep, I see it now. Yep. He answered that question. I just realized he just answered it before anyway. Is there going to be lighting back in this parking lot? Is there gonna be lighting in that parking lot where your cars are displayed in the rear?
Yes, we would like lighting back there eventually, yes.
And you'll make sure it doesn't shine in on your neighbors, the Arc and the other ones that are right next to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I know we ran it before. Are we requiring paving for this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
So you understand you're gonna have to pave this area back there to do the car sales?
Okay. I
Anything
wasn't
over-
aware of that.
Anything over 5,000 square feet is gonna require some water detention.
Okay.
Don, does this have to go to, will this have to go to planning because of that?
No, if it's just a parking lot, it would just, we would have our engineer review whatever plans there are, but it wouldn't need approval from the planning commission. We just.
We're gonna need a buffer on the right side of the, looking in from the front, on the right side, we're gonna need a buffer against them buildings that are there.
I don't think the residential, so I don't think you need a
Okay,
buffer.
I wasn't sure, that's why I
all
just,
commercial there.
okay. Gotta give you credit, you did a good map. We're
Thank
not
you.
used to this.
I tried my best.
We're not used to this. Anyone from the board have any questions or ideas?
Well, I just think we just gotta put the stipulation in about the paving.
Yep. What's your hours gonna be?
10 to 6, 7 days a week.
Okay.
6 days a week in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah, okay.
No car sales on Sunday, right?
No, sir.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't even get into the paperwork with the car sales yet because they said I had to do this first. So, okay, 6 days a week. Wow.
You can wash them on Sunday.
Yeah, it's because it's the time to repair them and stuff.
I don't have any other questions. Anybody else?
Kathleen is here. Do you have
Okay.
anything, Kathleen?
I don't have any questions.
No thoughts?
It has to be a paved lot. Is that what you told the gentleman?
Yeah, it's over 5,000 square feet. It has to be paved.
Is there any kind of rules? Because I know there's a childcare center right there. Is that anything the board needs to take into consideration?
Well,
I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything because there's no noise. I mean, they're parked cars. I don't see any safety issues. That's why I was questioning about the buffer, if need be, like something put in there. I don't know. Do you plan on having music playing on the outside of that building?
No music.
Good, thank you. That'd be my concern with the business next to you. Anything else, Kath?
Yes.
Nothing else for the neighborhood group. So thank you very much and good luck.
Thanks, Kathleen. Anybody else have here to give testimony in this case? Back to the board. Can I have a motion?
Yeah, a motion with the stipulation for the paving. Can we make sure that's in there?
It's required, but I'll put it in to emphasize it, sure.
And the lighting too, that to make sure that regardless if they're open or closed, just to avoid a problem down the road, that the lighting doesn't shine into the businesses adjacent to it.
I'll make a motion to vote with stipulations.
Second.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Gattens.
Yes, by a vote of 4-0, your variance was granted, and welcome to Scranton, and good luck with your business.
Thank you guys so much.
That it?
That's the agenda.
The agenda.
Very good. Well, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Everybody.
Wake up, Bob. Wake up.
Larry's bothered me.
Is that you were here in the background there? That little
Uh-huh.
voice?
Not me. God.
See you guys.
Take care, everyone.
Hey, Sean.
Thanks for a good meeting. I did. That's the word.